Hi everyone, a big thank you for bearing with me today. My name is Magali and I'm a medical herbalist. I am also a trauma release therapist. I was really looking forward to seeing you all in person this evening. But as some of you might know, life on our small holding, especially with 2 young children, the sheep, the chickens, the geese, and the horses, has a wonderful way of keeping us on our toes. And tonight, those toes belong to a little one who needs me here. So, I'm going to be bringing this talk through you from my home through a video. I am so glad that I've been invited today because this topic is one that is incredibly close to my heart. It's a subject that often gets missed in standard medical settings, and yet I see it walk through my clinic doors every single week. So as medical herbalist, my training goes far beyond just recommending herbs. We are trained to review patients' full medical history, to understand the root cause of their symptoms, and to make clinical diagnosis. And if we suspect something needs further investigation, we will refer for further testing. From there, we build a protocol, dietary adjustments, tailored herbal prescriptions, and targeted supplement. Now, one of the conditions we were specifically trained to keep on our radar is hypermobility syndrome and EDS. We were taught that these are vastly underdiagnosed, so we must always have them in the back of our minds. But here is what gets actually more personal for me. A couple of years ago, quite by accident, I discovered that I am hypermobile myself. And that was actually a light bulb moment for me. It sent me on a really deep personal and professional deep dive into the topic. And since then, it's been remarkable. I have been able to manage my condition much better. And I would also say that in my clinic, at least 1 or 2 patients every single week discover through our consultation that they are likely having hypermobility syndrome. It explains a lifetime of seemingly unconnected symptoms for them. So, what is hypermobility? Let's talk about this actually. So to put this simply, we are talking about a difference in collagen. Collagen is the scaffolding of your body. It's the protein that provides structure and strength to your connective tissue. It's in your ligaments, your tendons, your skin, your blood vessels, and even your organs. In people with hypermobility, there is a variation in the collagen. It's more stretchy, more compliant than in other people. And because of this, the ligaments, which are meant to hold our joints tight, are a little bit too lax. And this allows the joints to move beyond the normal range of motion. Now, it's important to understand the nuance here. There is EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and for some types of EDS, like the classical or the vascular types, there is a known genetic mutation that can be tested for. It's rare, but it's identifiable. And then there is a hypermobility spectrum disorder, HSD, which used to be called simply hypermobility syndrome. And this is much more common. It presents with the same joint laxity and many of the same systemic symptoms, but it doesn't have a specific genetic marker. We cannot test for it yet. It is a clinical diagnosis based on history and symptoms. So we assess joint laxity using something called the Beighton Score. It's a simple 9-point scale looking at specific joints. Whether your pinky can bend back past 90 degrees, whether your thumbs can touch your forearms, or your elbows or knees hyperextend. And also if you can place your hands flat on the floor with straight legs. And here is something fascinating that most people don't even realize. If you are someone who feels incredibly comfortable in yoga, gymnastics, or ballet, there is roughly 90% chances that you are hypermobile. And these activities naturally attract us because our bodies can move into positions that often others find impossible. But that natural advantage can also be the very thing that over time leads to instability and pain. Okay, I want to pause here and bust a massive myth that stops people from seeking help. So many people come to me and say, oh no, I am not hypermobile, it can't be me, I am not a contortionist. But here's the truth. You do not need to be hypermobile in every joint to have hypermobility syndrome. You only need to present with a few of these criteria. In fact, it is incredibly common to be incredibly stiff in some areas, say your lower back, for instance, while your shoulders or your hips are excessively lax and unstable. And the body often compensates for looseness in one area by tightening up in other areas. And that tension, and it's actually what is guarding the body, and that is the sign of the condition. It's not a proof that you don't have it. So, if you have chronic pain, and especially if it's in specific joints that feel loose or that can even pop out for some, please don't dismiss it just because you can't do the splits. We look at the whole picture, the joint history and the systemic symptoms, because it is a systemic condition. So here is the most crucial thing to understand. Hypermobility is not just about being double jointed or good at party tricks. It is a systemic condition. If your collagen is stretchy everywhere, it can affect almost every system in your body. So yes, there is the musculoskeletal pain, and actually some people are hypermobile and don't experience this. And that's another interesting case. But the other thing that we see aside from chronic aches for some is dysautonomia or POTS, which is trouble regulating the autonomic nervous system. And this can look like heart palpitation, dizziness on standing up. Some people often show low blood pressure with hypermobility or feeling faint. It can manifest in skin and tissues, such as easy bruising, unusual stretch mark, or slow wound healing. It can affect reproductive health with heavy period, painful period, temperature regulation with excessive sweating, sweaty hand, or feeling too hot or too cold because the blood vessels do not constrict and dilate properly. And yes, there is also the brain, and there's a very high correlation between hypermobility and neurodivergence, particularly ADHD and autism, and anxiety, because it's all connected by that same neurology and connective tissue, which is your collagen. So the why, the pain and the fatigue, and why does this lead to this chronic pain and exhaustion? It is a cascade. First, because the ligaments are loose, the muscles have to work over time, and they go into a state of hypervigilance, constantly spasming and tightening to hold the joints in place. And this can lead to muscle tension, trapped nerves, and exhaustion. It's a bit like doing a bicep curl 24/7. You would be tired too. So one of the quick tips that I often give is, if you struggle with this, you have to teach your nervous system that it is safe. This means starting any new task slowly. So don't start launching into a big gardening project at full speed. Warm up gently, take breaks, and build up gradually. And this spacing approach can really help calm that hyper-vigilant muscle response. This creates a cycle of chronic inflammation if you don't pay attention to it. And with chronic inflammation comes profound fatigue. We also see issues with water absorption. Many of us are constantly dehydrated because our cells aren't holding onto water properly, which affects everything from brain function to joint lubrication. So one simple thing that I often offer to my patients, and actually that I've put in place for myself, is adding electrolytes to water. Plain water often just goes straight through us. Electrolytes helps the water actually get into the cells where it's needed. And on a deep biochemical level, many people with hypermobility or EDS struggle with methylation. And this is a process in the liver, a detox pathway that requires specific nutrients like B12, folate, and choline. And when this pathway is sluggish, it can worsen fatigue, brain fog, and the body's ability to repair itself. For this, many people find huge relief by switching to methylated B vitamins like methylfolate or methylcobalamin, that's in form of B12 drops often. And these are easier for the body to use when methylation cycle is stuck. So, putting all the pieces back together, navigating this minefield is incredibly difficult, but as Herbalist, this is where I help people put those pieces back together. And we look together at the diet, often protein-rich, well-hydrated, and anti-inflammatory diet is key. We look at posture and lifestyle, and I want to emphasize here, changing your posture regularly is vital. There is no single perfect posture. The best position is always your next position. Keep moving, even if it's just micro movements, to stop the muscles from seizing up. We look at supplement to support those methylation pathways, and then we get to the herbs, and we use herbs that are tropho-restorative, quite a big word here, meaning that they feed the tissues. Herbs that support the nervous system to calm that hyper-vigilant muscle. And powerful anti-inflammatories. And one thing that has been a massive game changer for myself actually, and my patients who manifested with, chronic pains, is the addition of creatine. We think of it for bodybuilders, but for us, it's an incredible energy source for the muscles and the brain. It can significantly reduce muscle fatigue and post-exertional malaise. So a final thought. If any of this resonates with you, if you've been told that you're just flexible or you've collected a list of strange symptoms over the years, I want to leave you with this. Your body is not broken. It's different. It's more flexible, yes. But that means it needs to be managed with more awareness, more mindfulness, and more compassion. This is not about forcing your body into shape or pushing through the pain. It's about connecting with it, listening to it, and working with it. Okay, there is also a whole emotional aspect to this, about the boundaries, about learning not to overbend to please others, about finding strength in your flexibility without losing yourself, about saying no, which can be really hard for hypermobiles actually. But that's a whole other talk, and given that I've already completely overrun for this video, I will save that for next time. So for now, know that there is a framework for understanding this, and there is a way to help. So thank you so much for watching me from my house. And I look forward to connecting in person very soon.